The chains of the galaxy and the deep silence of the galaxy. Countless stars shined like tiny eyes watching from eternity. For thousands of years, the overlords ruled every species under their command. They were ancient, powerful, and merciless, beings of pure energy and metal fused together. Their word was law, their command was death, and no one dared to speak against them. Entire civilizations were born and destroyed under their rule, leaving behind only ashes and obedience. The overlords believed themselves to be gods, the masters of all life. They controlled the skies, the oceans, and the minds of every sentient being. Through fear, through control, and through endless propaganda, they erased hope from the stars. Each race carried a mark of slavery, a code implanted in their DNA that made them bow at the overlord's presence. The galaxy was quiet, peaceful on the surface, but beneath that peace was endless suffering. Among the countless planets they ruled, there was one world that had disappeared from their records, a small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun. Forgotten in the darkness, that world was Earth long ago. Humanity had fought its own wars, destroyed itself, and rebuilt from the ashes. When the overlords conquered the galaxy, they never found Earth. Its signal vanished, its people silent, but humanity had not vanished. They were rebuilding, learning, preparing. They were waiting for the day when they would rise again on the overlord throne world. A storm gathered in the sky. High Lord Vratin, the oldest of the overlords, stood in his crystal palace. His red eyes flickered as he stared at a holographic map of the galaxy. One of his servants knelt before him, trembling, and whispered, "My lord, we have detected a strange signal. It comes from an unregistered system." Vratin tilted his head. "Unregistered? Impossible, every world belongs to us." The servant swallowed his fear. "Yes, my lord, but this one, it bears a human code." For a moment, the hall fell silent. The overlord's voice dropped to a low growl. "Human? That species was erased before the first conquest. Impossible. But the signal was real. A faint message hidden in the old Terran frequency." It repeated a single phrase over and over. "We are still here." Across the galaxy, other overlords noticed the same anomaly. They dismissed it as a glitch, a ghost in the void, but Vratin did not. He remembered the old wars when humans had fought until their last breath. He remembered their stubbornness, their defiance, their endless hunger to survive. Even back then, humanity had refused to kneel. And now, after centuries of silence, their voice had returned far from the overlord core worlds. Deep in the Orion Spur, humanity was alive. Cities sparkled beneath protective domes. Massive stations orbited the planet. They had rebuilt everything in secret, hidden behind electromagnetic storms and false signals. They remembered what the old records said, about the day the stars went silent, about the fall of Earth's colonies. Humanity had learned, adapted, evolved. No longer divided, no longer weak. They had united under one symbol, the Terran Alliance. Its motto was simple: "Never again shall we bow." In the capital city of New Avalon, Commander Elena Vasquez stood inside the War Council chamber. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Before her floated the hologram of the old Terran fleet, ships that once ruled the stars. Her voice echoed through the hall. "We've intercepted the Overlord patrol near the rim. They are searching for us." The council members looked worried. "Do you think they've found out?" one asked. Vasquez nodded slowly. "Yes. And if they're coming, then we will greet them," the others gasped. "But Commander, they are gods compared to us." She smiled faintly. "Then it's time the gods remember what humans can do." Outside the city, deep in the mountains, massive hangars began to open. Dust and frost fell as old Terran warships powered up for the first time in centuries. Engines roared and red lights burned across their hulls. The AI cores inside them awoke, whispering through the comms. "Orders, Commander," Elena replied with steady calm. "Prepare for contact, and show them that humanity is not extinct." Meanwhile, in the far reaches of space, an Overlord scout ship approached Earth's hidden system. Its sensors scanned the planet, detecting strange energy spikes. The captain of the scout ship sent a report to Vratin, but before the message could reach him, the ship vanished. No explosion, no distress signal, just silence. The Overlords tried to track it, but all systems failed. And then, across the stars, a small unknown signal spread again, louder this time. "We are still here." The galaxy trembled, not from war but from memory. Old races that had long forgotten courage felt something stir in their hearts. Stories began to spread among the slaves, of a world that did not kneel, of humans who still fought, and in the heart of the Overlord Empire, fear took root for the first time in ages. High Lord Vratin turned toward the window, watching the lightning storm outside. His metallic voice echoed, "If they truly live, we will burn them to dust." But deep inside, even he felt it. A shiver, a memory, a shadow of a war that once nearly ended them all. For the galaxy was about to remember the one truth it had tried to erase. Humanity may fall, but humanity never stays down. The forgotten world, the Overlord fleets moved like shadows through the dark sea of stars. Each ship carried thousands of soldiers, drones, and machines of war. Their mission was simple: locate the source of the human signal and destroy it. High Lord Vratin commanded the operation himself, believing it would end quickly after all. No species had ever stood against the Overlords and survived. But this time things were different. Their scanners could not lock onto the planet clearly. Strange distortions covered the system, making every reading uncertain. The Overlord's ships entered cautiously, weapons ready, sensors searching for signs of life. And there it was, a small blue planet wrapped in storms and static. Vratin's voice echoed through the fleet. "Approach with caution. I want that world secured." As the first scout ship descended into the atmosphere, it reported something unexpected. The cities below were alive, glowing with light and filled with movement. But their designs were strange, human, built in ways the Overlords could not understand. Before the scout could transmit images, its signal was cut, replaced by static and silence. On the planet's surface, Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the command tower of New Avalon. She watched the sky as the warning alarms blared. Her officers reported the intruder's position. Overlord fleet detected entering orbit. Elena's expression remained calm. Her voice firm. "All defense systems online. Activate the rail platform's massive towers rose from the ground, their barrels glowing with blue plasma. For centuries, humanity had studied every alien code, every old weapon, every weakness. They had built weapons not just to fight, but to survive. Each missile, each beam, was designed to hit where the Overlords were strongest. "Fire on my mark," Elna said quietly. When the first Overlord ship crossed into range, she raised her hand and whispered. Now, a thunderous wave shook the sky. The railguns fired, their projectiles cutting through the void at near light speed. The Overlord vessel's shields flickered, then shattered like glass. An explosion bloomed across the horizon as the great ship fell burning into the sea. The rest of the fleet froze in disbelief. No species had ever destroyed an Overlord ship so easily. But humanity had learned how they thought, how they moved, how they underestimated their enemies. From hidden launch bays beneath the oceans, stealth bombers rose like silver ghosts. They struck fast, hitting the enemy engines and vanishing before being detected. Each explosion painted the sky with fire. Each victory sent a signal across the galaxy. Back in orbit, Vratin watched the chaos unfold. His red eyes narrowed as he spoke to his generals. "How can this be? Primitive humans cannot do this," his second-in-command replied nervously. "They must have stolen technology, my lord." But Vratin knew better. "No, this is human design," he whispered. He had seen it before during the first wars, when humans built ships from nothing and fought gods with courage alone. Down on Earth, Elena's forces prepared for the next wave. She walked through the command deck, her boots echoing against the metal floor. Her officers saluted, but she only nodded. "Stay focused. They'll send more." Behind her, the holographic screens showed messages from across the colonies. "Commander, Mars defense online, Luna batteries charging, Titan fleet standing by." For the first time in centuries, all of humanity stood united in the far sectors of the galaxy. Enslaved alien races listened to intercepted broadcasts. They heard the message, "Earth stands free." It spread like wildfire, whispered in the dark corners of mines, in the cold halls of factories. Those words carried something no one had dared to feel: hope. And with hope came defiance on the Overlord capital world. The council gathered in panic. Reports came in from multiple systems. Slaves refusing orders, soldiers hesitating, rebellions igniting. One counselor shouted, "It is the humans. They are corrupting the order." Another hissed, "We must destroy them before their infection spreads." But Vratin silenced them all with a raised claw. "We will not destroy them." Yet he stared at the hologram of Earth, its blue light reflecting in his eyes. "They think they are free," They think they are strong, he murmured. Then let them show us what their freedom is worth. He turned to his generals. Assemble the purge fleets, I will burn that world myself. Back on Earth, Elena stood on the balcony of her command tower. Watching the night sky, the stars seemed peaceful. But she knew they were watching. Waiting, judging, she whispered softly. Let them come. Behind her, the AI voice of the old flagship Solaris Prime echoed through the comms. Commander, all systems are ready. Shall we wake the fleet? Elena smiled faintly, her eyes hard as steel. Wake them. And prepare the message. A signal pulsed through the void, bouncing from planet to planet, ship to ship. Its words were simple, clear, and fearless. To every race still under chains, this is humanity. We are free. And you can be too. Across the stars, slaves lifted their heads for the first time in ages. And in that moment, the galaxy began to change. In the Overlord throne room, Vraten watched the human broadcast with cold fury. He clenched his metallic fist, his voice a whisper that carried across the fleet. Then let the war begin. The darkness of space seemed to tremble. For somewhere deep within the old Terran shipyards, 1,000 dormant engines roared back to life. The forgotten world was no longer forgotten. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The silent rebellion. The galaxy had lived in silence for too long. No one dared to whisper the word freedom, but now, the message from Earth echoed through every channel. Every dark corner, every forgotten world, it said, humanity is free. And those words spread faster than light itself. On the mining moons of Kareth, slaves stopped their work for the first time in centuries. The guards shouted, the whips cracked, but no one moved. A single miner, his scales dull and scarred, looked to the sky and whispered, humans fight. Maybe we can too. On another world, deep under the ice of Vornax, alien children secretly drew the human flag on walls. They had never seen humans, but they believed in the stories. Stories of a people who would rather die standing than live kneeling. The overlords tried to block the human transmissions, but humanity had learned to hide signals inside music, trade frequencies, even starship communications. Their message became a ghost in the void. Impossible to erase, it carried courage in every note. Defiance in every word and everywhere it reached. Sparks of rebellion began to burn. Meanwhile, Earth stood on full alert. Commander Elena Vasquez walked through the Grand War hangar, her boots echoing against metal floors. All around her, engineers worked tirelessly, repairing old ships, rearming forgotten weapons. AI drones hovered above, scanning every circuit. Each ship had a story, built from the ruins of past wars. Reborn through human hands, they called the new fleet the Dawn Armada, a symbol of the rising light in a dark galaxy. On the edge of the solar system, Admiral Rebecca Stone led a patrol fleet beyond Pluto's orbit. She watched the stars and smiled faintly. Hard to believe they thought we were gone. Her second officer, a young man named Ethan Lee, replied softly, They'll believe soon enough. Ma'am, Stone nodded. Yes, but belief is not enough. We must make them fear again. Her words were calm, but her eyes burned with fire. Back in the Overlord Dominion, High Lord Vraten grew restless. Reports flooded his command center and missing patrols. Stolen data, small uprisings, isolated events, his generals insisted. Nothing to worry about. But he knew better. He saw the pattern forming, all of it centered around one growing influence, humanity. He stood in front of the galactic map, watching red warning lights spread like infection through his empire. They are infecting our order, he hissed, turning slaves into rebels, turning fear into hope. He slammed his metallic claw against the console, sparks flying. Send the enforcers. Burn every system that dares to speak the human name. And so began the purge. Entire cities turned to ash. Planets silenced by orbital bombardment, but even as they fell, the last words of those who died were always the same. For freedom, on Earth. The human councils watched the horror unfold through intercepted transmissions. Some wanted to hide, to wait, to stay safe. But Elena slammed her hand on the table, her voice hard and steady. If we hide, we are no better than them, she said. They burn the galaxy because they fear what we represent. So we must become the fire. The council fell silent, then one by one they agreed. Operation Whisper was approved. Across the stars, human stealth ships slipped through wormholes and abandoned jump gates. They carried not bombs but messages, holographic broadcasts, maps, blueprints. and words and simple words of rebellion, rise, and you will not stand alone. In the shadow of Nebula X-47, a small rebel fleet formed, aliens of different shapes, colors, and origins. Their ships were old, weak, and barely armed, but in the center of that fleet flew one ship, painted with a simple symbol, the blue-white flag of Earth. The rebel commander, an insectoid named Trinka, addressed her crew. "They call humans dangerous," she said, her mandibles clicking softly. "They are right. Dangerous to tyranny. The overlords sent hunters to destroy them, but by the time the fleets arrived, the rebels were gone. Their ships vanished like smoke, their signals bouncing through space. It was as if the stars themselves were hiding them. The silent rebellion had begun back on Earth." Elena stood before her fleet commanders. Holographic maps filled the air, showing routes to hidden allies. Her voice carried quiet strength. "They think we fight for revenge, but we fight for everyone who has ever lived in chains." Her officers nodded, one saying softly, "And when they come again, Commander?" She smiled faintly. "Then we show them what humans do when cornered." At that moment, deep within the Terran Command AI network, the oldest system came online, Project Orion. It was a data vault containing the knowledge of old Earth wars. Within it slept battle strategies, ancient weapons, and something else, a code written long ago. Its purpose was simple: to awaken when humanity stands united again, and now the code pulsed alive, whispering through the network. Protocol Phoenix activated. Every Terran ship received the same encrypted signal. Their systems hummed, their engines flared brighter, and from the dark edges of human space, ghost fleets began to awaken. Ships thought lost, forgotten or dead, one by one their lights flickered back on. Old captains' AI voices echoed across comms. "Humanity calls," and we answer. In the Overlord High Citadel, Rotten watched as his empire trembled. He stared into the endless void, his claws tightening. "Enough," he growled. "Prepare the Grand Armada. I will crush this rebellion myself." But for the first time in his long life, there was doubt in his voice, for he could not shake the feeling that something vast and unstoppable was coming. And somewhere in the blackness of space, a human signal pulsed once more, steady and clear. "This is not the age of gods," it said. "This is the age of humanity." The first clash, the stars burned bright over the edge of human space. Every sensor, every ship, every soldier waited in silence. The galaxy held its breath, for this was the calm before the storm. The overlords were coming from the dark between the stars. The Grand Armada emerged like a tidal wave of black fire. Thousands of ships, each the size of a city, filled the void. Their engines screamed, tearing space itself as they advanced toward Earth's system. High Lord Vratin stood upon the bridge of his flagship. "Eternal dominion," his voice thundered through the fleet. "Erase the humans, burn their world. Let none remain." Meanwhile, in orbit around Mars, Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Solaris Prime. The Terran flagship gleamed with silver armor and blue plasma veins running along its hull. Around her, the human fleet waited, not as slaves or rebels, but as free warriors. She spoke softly through the comms. "They think they face one world, but they face every soul that remembers what freedom means." AI systems hummed, preparing calculations for combat. The human fleet was smaller, outnumbered 10-1, but humanity had learned to fight wars they were never meant to win. They had patience, they had strategy, and they had rage buried deep in their bones. The moment had come to release it. The first contact came near the edge of Jupiter's orbit. An Overlord vanguard moved ahead, scanning for resistance. But what they found instead were ghosts. Empty ships floating silently, broadcasting no life signs. The Overlords approached cautiously, and then, suddenly the void erupted, hidden mines detonated. Ripping through their formation, explosions lit the darkness. And from the shadow of Jupiter's rings, human ships decloaked. "Strike Group Alpha." "Engage," Elena ordered. The human cruisers moved like predators, their engines roaring. Railguns fired, kinetic slugs cutting through shields like lightning through glass. Missiles screamed, guided by AIs that learned from every shot they fired. The Overlords retaliated, their plasma beams slicing through space, melting asteroids to dust, but the humans kept moving, vanishing into debris fields, striking again and again. Admiral Rebecca Stone commanded the flanking division from Titan Base. Her voice echoed through the comms. Keep your eyes sharp. Target their command ships. Her fleet launched pulse torpedoes, weapons built using stolen overlord tech, improved by human ingenuity. Each hit caused chaos. Overlord ships spinning out of control, their systems failing. The humans didn't fight like machines. They fought like wolves, unpredictable, relentless, and cunning. Across the galaxy, the battle was being broadcast in secret by human allies. For the first time in thousands of years, the enslaved races saw the overlords losing. They watched in awe as human ships, small and scarred, tore through the most powerful fleet in existence. On countless worlds, cheers erupted. Children who had never seen a sunrise whispered, "Humans are real." Back on eternal dominion, Vraten roared in fury. He slammed his claws into the command table, sparks flying. These creatures were supposed to be extinct. His lieutenant replied nervously, "They fight without logic, my lord. Without fear." Vraten's eyes glowed red. "Then we will burn the fear back into them." He ordered all fleets to converge, unleashing waves of plasma storms toward the human positions. For hours, the sky burned red. Human ships exploded. Overlord vessels shattered. It was chaos, light, fire, and metal colliding in a storm of destruction. On the bridge of Solaris Prime, Elena gripped the railing as her ship shook violently. "Status?" she shouted. "Shields at 40%. Engines holding?" The AI responded calmly. She took a deep breath. "Then we're still alive, and as long as we're alive, we fight." At her command, the Solaris Prime dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Overlord gunners screamed warnings, firing plasma storms in panic. But the massive human ship cut through them like a blade, its railguns spinning, each shot struck with perfect precision, targeting weak points the AI had learned mid-battle. It wasn't just firepower, it was evolution in motion. As the humans fought, something awakened deep within their network. Project Orion, now fully active, began transmitting combat data in real time. Every human ship adapted instantly, predicting enemy movements before they happened. The overlords couldn't understand it. How could primitives fight with such precision? They had forgotten that humans built machines to think, not just obey. Hours later, the battlefield around Mars was covered in burning wreckage. Both sides had taken heavy losses, but the overlords had never expected resistance this fierce. Vraten's rage turned to unease as his flagship's sensors detected an anomaly near Earth. A signal unlike anything they had seen. Massive, ancient, powerful. "What is that?" he demanded. His AI replied in a trembling tone. "It's another fleet, sir. From behind Earth's moon, hundreds of dark shapes began to emerge. Massive ships, some larger than cities, glowing with golden light. These were the ghost fleets of humanity. Ships lost during the First Galactic War. Hidden and preserved, now they had returned. Awakened by Project Orion's signal, their AI captains spoke as one. The Terran Guard answers the call. On Solaris Prime, Elena looked to the stars and smiled. Her voice was quiet but strong. "Now, it's our turn." The human fleet formed up behind her, aligning with the newly arrived armada. A wall of light stretched across the void, engines humming like a living heart, and as the Overlord fleet turned to face them, the humans opened fire. The battle that followed would be remembered in every corner of the galaxy. The moment when the slaves found hope, the tyrants found fear, and humanity proved that even in the darkest night their fire would never die. The war for the broken chains. The first clash had torn open the galaxy, but it was only the beginning. The Overlord fleets had retreated to regroup, their pride shattered, their fear growing. Humanity, bloodied yet unbroken, stood ready for what would come next. The war for freedom had truly begun. Across the stars, whispers became battle cries. On slave worlds, the oppressed rose up, armed with stolen weapons and burning hope. Factories once used to build Overlord war machines now forged blades for rebellion. Entire species that had forgotten courage remembered it again. And at the center of it all, humanity led the way. Commander Elena Vasquez sat in the war room aboard Solaris Prime, her eyes fixed on the holographic map. Red dots, enemy fleets, surrounded the human colonies like a tightening net. Her voice remained steady. "They are regrouping faster than expected. They won't stop until Earth burns." Admiral Rebecca Stone appeared on the hololink, her tone grim. "Then we take the war to them." Elena nodded slowly. "Agreed. It's time for humanity to strike back." The operation was named Phoenix Rising. It would be the largest coordinated human offensive since the old Earth Wars. Multiple fleets would move through secret wormholes, striking key overlord systems. They would hit their supply lines, data hubs, and control nodes, the backbone of their empire. If the plan succeeded, the galaxy's chains would shatter forever. But before the plan could launch, something unexpected happened. A message arrived from a distant system, from rebels calling themselves the Freeborn Coalition. They were a mix of alien races, armed with stolen ships and united under one symbol, the human flag. Their leader, Trenka, appeared on the comms, her mandibles clicking in excitement. "You fought the gods," she said. "Now let us fight beside you." Elena smiled faintly. "Then welcome to humanity's side. Together, they formed a grand alliance, humans and aliens equals for the first time in history. And when the fleets assembled, the stars seemed to come alive. Thousands of ships stretched across the void, glowing like a new constellation. From massive Terran dreadnoughts to small rebel fighters, every vessel carried the same message. "We will not kneel in the overlord capital system." High Lord Vratin stared at his fleet's losses with silent rage. He turned to his council, his voice echoing cold and sharp. "These humans spread rebellion like a virus. If we allow this infection to grow, our empire dies." One of his generals asked carefully. "What do we do, my lord?" Vratin raised a metallic claw toward the stars. "We burn everything." He ordered the creation of Project Oblivion, a weapon forged from the heart of a dying star. It would unleash a wave of destruction across light years, purging entire systems. If the humans would not bow, then no one would live to remember them back in Terran space. Elena and her officers received the intelligence too late. Scouts reported massive energy spikes in overlord space. The readings were unlike anything seen before. Rebecca Stone clenched her fists. "They're building a super weapon." Elena's voice turned cold. "Then we'll take it before they use it." The fleet moved through the hidden wormholes, each jump bringing them closer to the overlord stronghold. Inside Solaris Prime, tension filled the air. Engineers whispered prayers. Soldiers stared at the holographic stars. Every human knew what was at stake, not just victory, but existence itself. When the Terran fleet arrived, they found the truth waiting. A massive ring-shaped structure surrounded a burning star. Energy arcs crackled between its spires, creating waves of light that rippled across space. The overlords had created a weapon that could erase worlds, and it was moments from activation. "Fire everything," Elena commanded. Railguns, missiles, plasma beams, and the void turned into fire. The overlord defense fleet met them head-on. The battle raged for hours, a storm of light and death that shook the heavens. Ships were torn apart, but neither side yielded. Admiral Stone led the Titan division into the enemy's flank. Her voice rang through the comms. "We hold the line." No matter the cost, her flagship, Vigilant Star, took hit after hit but kept firing. When the reactor began to fail, she gave one final order. "Set course for the weapon core. Full speed." Her ship plunged into the heart of the overlord weapon. Detonating in a blinding flash, the explosion tore through the ring's structure, ripping it apart. Back on Solaris Prime, Elena watched the screen as the overlord weapon broke apart. Her voice was soft. "Rebecca, you did it." But there was no time to grieve. The enemy fleet still surrounded them, and now, a dark shape moved from the shadows. Vratin's flagship, Eternal Dominion. Its size dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. The Overlord Lord himself spoke over open channels. "Your defiance ends here, human." Elena stood tall, her eyes blazing. "No," she said quietly. "It begins here." At her command, the Terran fleet unleashed Project Nemesis. Hidden within a nearby red dwarf was a dormant superweapon, humanity's final card. As the activation code ran, the star itself began to tremble. Its surface cracked, and from its core, beams of concentrated plasma erupted outward. The Eternal Dominion tried to flee, but it was too late. The blast consumed everything. Tearing through space, both fleets were caught in the storm. Light brighter than creation engulfed them, and when the light faded, silence returned to the void for a moment. No one knew what had survived. Then, through the static, a voice came. Elena's voice, faint but alive. "This is Commander Vasquez of the Terran Alliance. The weapon is destroyed. Humanity endures. Across the galaxy." The message spread. Every slave, every rebel, every being in chains heard those words and lifted their heads. Humanity had faced gods and survived. The war was not over, but for the first time, the galaxy believed it could be won. The chains were breaking, one link at a time. And in the ashes of that battle, a legend was born. The legend of the humans who would rather burn with the stars than bow to tyrants. The fall of the Masters, the galaxy lay scarred, but alive. Worlds once drowned in silence now echoed with hope. The fires of rebellion spread faster than the overlords could extinguish them. Their fleets were shattered, their power fractured, and humanity stood at the heart of it all, battered, bleeding but unbroken, on the hidden world of Nova Bastion. The new command center of the Terran Alliance hummed with activity. Commander Elena Vasquez stood before a wall of holograms, showing every active front across the galaxy. Dozens of alien commanders appeared beside her image. Insectoids, reptilians, avians, and machines, all once enemies, all now united under one banner. Each carried a single symbol on their armor, a small blue insignia shaped like a human hand, a mark that meant freedom. Elena's voice filled the chamber, calm but sharp. The overlords have lost control of a third of the galaxy. Their fleets are in retreat, their command centers in chaos. She paused, eyes narrowing. But their leader, High Lord Vriton, still lives, and as long as he draws breath, the galaxy remains chained. The room fell silent. Then Trinka, the alien commander of the Freeborn Coalition, clicked her mandibles. Then we finish this. Together, Elena nodded. Together, meanwhile, deep within the Overlord core system, Vriton stood before the shattered throne of his ancestors, his once glorious citadel now cracked and smoking. The endless halls of golden light were dim and empty. Statues of the old masters lay broken across the floor. He stared at the holographic map showing rebellion everywhere. For the first time in his long reign, he felt something foreign. Fear. His generals argued before him, their voices trembling. My lord, our fleets are gone, our worlds are falling, and then rebuild them. Vriton roared, slamming his claw against the floor. We are gods. We do not fall to mortals. But even his own soldiers no longer believed those words. Whispers of surrender spread through the ranks. Whispers of humans, the race that could not be conquered. Across the stars, the Terran fleet prepared for its final assault. Solaris Prime had been repaired, though its hull still bore the scars of the last battle. Inside, Elena walked through the quiet corridors. Stopping before a large window that overlooked the stars, she whispered softly, Rebecca, we're almost there. The ship's AI spoke gently. Her sacrifice will not be forgotten. Commander, Elena nodded, her voice steady. No one's will. The plan was bold, almost impossible. The Allied fleet would strike directly at the Overlord throne world. Jartul, protected by planetary shields, gravity traps, and ancient weapons that had destroyed entire armadas. But humanity had a secret, something born from Project Orion's final phase. A weapon not of destruction but of deception. Codenamed the Mirage Engine, it could project false signals and entire fleets made of light. It would make the enemy see what wasn't there, an illusion so powerful even machines couldn't tell. Using it, the humans would draw the Overlord defenses away, while a small strike force infiltrated the planet's core. There, buried deep beneath molten layers, was the Overlord Central AI, the true mind of their empire. Destroy that and the Overlords would fall forever. The day of the final battle arrived. The Allied fleet jumped into the Jartul system, emerging into chaos and fire. The planet glowed red beneath the light of twin suns. Vriton's remaining armada, thousands of ships, waited in perfect formation. Their hulls blackened from war, their engines burning like rage itself. Activate the Mirage Engine, Elena ordered. The void shimmered, and suddenly a second Terran fleet appeared beside them. The Overlords panicked, turning all their guns toward the illusion. Massive plasma storms tore through the holographic ships, which didn't exist. The distraction worked. Through the chaos, small infiltration craft slipped through the enemy lines unseen. Among them, Solaris Prime, carrying Elena and the core strike team. They descended into the atmosphere of Jartul. Lightning tore across the red sky, the air thick with ash and radiation. Massive towers rose like jagged blades from the planet's surface. Everywhere the screams of the dying echoed through the storm. As Solaris Prime broke through the clouds, the Overlord Citadel appeared, a fortress of metal and light at the planet's heart. Elena's voice was calm. Target the central core. Bring us in close. The ship landed amid the chaos, its hull glowing with heat. Human soldiers and alien allies stormed the gates. Laser fire lit the sky. Plasma bolts screamed across the battlefield. But the Allied forces moved with precision, their unity unbreakable for every soldier that fell. 2 more took their place inside the citadel. Brayton watched the battle unfold. He could feel the end approaching. His throne trembled as explosions rocked the foundations. When the humans finally breached the gates, he rose to his full height, towering and monstrous. "You dare to challenge a god?" he roared. Elena stepped forward, her armor scorched, her voice steady. "You were never gods, just tyrants who forgot what life means." They fought in the burning hall. Broughton's strength was immense, his claws tearing through steel, but Elena moved with purpose. Every strike guided by generations of human defiance. He struck her down, but she rose again, blood on her face, fire in her eyes. She grabbed a fallen plasma spear and drove it into his chest. Broughton screamed, light bursting from his body as he fell. His citadel began to collapse, the AI core flickering and dying. Outside, the overlord fleets froze, their systems failing one by one. Their ships drifted helplessly, no longer bound by the command network across the galaxy. The chains that bound the slaves shattered, control codes dissolved, and billions of beings stood free for the first time in their lives. As Solaris Prime lifted off from the burning planet, Elena looked down at the ruins, her voice broke softly. "It's over," the AI responded. "For now, Commander." "But peace is never given, and it is built." Elena closed her eyes. "Then we'll build it," and so the Masters fell. The age of fear ended, and the galaxy woke to a new dawn. Humanity, once forgotten and hunted, had become the beacon of freedom. Their name would no longer be whispered in secret. It would be spoken with pride, for the overlords had ruled the stars. But it was humanity who reclaimed them. The new dawn, the war was over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the noise of battle. For centuries, the galaxy had known only fear, only obedience, only the endless shadow of the overlords. Now the stars were quiet, as if holding their breath, and in that stillness, humanity rose not as conquerors but as rebuilders. The ruins of Jartol still glowed beneath twin suns. The once mighty citadel lay broken. Its towers collapsed into rivers of molten metal. Where screams of power once echoed, now only wind and dust remained. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of Solaris Prime, watching the planet's horizon fade into gold. Her reflection shimmered in the glass. Tired eyes, battle-scarred armor, yet a faint smile on her lips. She whispered softly, "The chains are gone." All across the galaxy, the effects rippled like waves through water. On the desert world of Kareth, miners threw away their chains and raised banners of freedom. On the ice moons of Vornax, children who had never seen the sun stepped out to breathe free air. Entire planets that had once lived under overlord rule now shone with new light. And everywhere the same message echoed through the stars. Humanity kept its promise. The Terran alliance transformed from a fleet of survivors into a council of builders. Earth became the heart of the new Galactic Union, a place where every race had a voice. Old enemies sat side by side, their wounds healing slowly but surely. The great shipyards once used to craft weapons were turned to building colonies and stations. Instead of war machines, they now forged vessels meant for exploration and peace. But peace was not without struggle. There were those who could not forget the centuries of pain. Some wanted revenge against the remaining overlord remnants scattered across the void. Others feared humanity's growing power, whispering that the new masters might become like the old. Elena listened to them all, and her voice remained firm. Humanity does not rule. We guide, we protect, and we remember. On the day of remembrance, millions gathered across countless worlds. Every city, every ship, every colony paused to honor the fallen. A great holographic beacon was lit above Earth. Shining like a second sun, its message was simple, written in every known language. Freedom is never given. It is earned and shared. Admiral Rebecca Stone's name was carved into the Hall of Heroes. Trinka and the freeborn commanders stood beside the human council. Even the machines that once served as slaves now stood proudly as free sentients. The galaxy that had once been divided by fear was now bound by hope, and in every corner of that vast darkness, the human handprint became a symbol, not of dominance but of unity. Years passed, and new generations were born who knew nothing of the chains. Children studied the war not as horror but as history. The story of when mortals defeated gods. Ships from 100 species now flew side by side through open trade routes, no longer hiding, no longer divided, and on the front of every vessel, a small plaque bore the same words. In the age of tyranny, humanity stood. One evening, Elena stood once more on the command deck of Solaris Prime. The ship had been retired, turned into a museum orbiting the rebuilt world of New Avalon. But to her it still felt alive, its engines humming softly like a sleeping giant. She placed her hand on the control panel, feeling the vibration beneath her fingers. The AI spoke gently, its tone like an old friend. "The galaxy is quiet, Commander." Elena smiled faintly. For now, she turned her gaze toward the stars, each one glowing like a promise, a story waiting to be told. Behind her, young cadets walked the halls. New leaders, explorers, dreamers. They would carry humanity's spirit into the unknown. Not with weapons, but with wisdom, not with fear, but with courage. Outside the viewport, a formation of new generation Terran ships passed in perfect harmony. Their silver hulls gleamed under distant suns, emblems of the Galactic Union painted across their sides. As they drifted past Solaris Prime, each ship flashed its lights once in salute, a silent thank you to the ones who came before. In the far reaches of the void, remnants of the overlords' empire still floated. Broken ships, dead worlds, empty monuments, but on one quiet moon, a group of alien children played beside a fallen overlord statue. They laughed as they climbed it, tying ribbons of color around its clawed hands. Their teacher watched and smiled, whispering softly, "Once they ruled everything, and now they protect our games." The galaxy had changed, and so had its meaning of power. As the sun rose over Earth's horizon, the light touched the oceans, the cities, and the memorials. Humanity had walked through fire, through darkness, through extinction itself. And from the ashes they had built something greater than victory, a future. Elena's final broadcast echoed through every network, carried by the winds of space. Her voice was calm, strong, eternal. "Remember what we learned? That no being is born free. Freedom is built by courage, guarded by unity, and shared by all. And when the stars grow dark again, when fear returns, may someone remember this age. The age when humanity broke the chains." The signal spread across the galaxy, bouncing from world to world, and as it faded into the eternal hum of the universe, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, for a new dawn had truly come. And the galaxy would never forget the name of those who made it possible. The humans, the breakers of chains,